think I think whatever you're doing, especially in construction, you got to find your why. Because as I'm sure as you're aware, it does come to a very there are times that are very stressful. In that process when things are just not lining up, you've got deadlines that you need to meet, and you're trying your best. You're putting everything into it. It's just not happening, and it becomes very frustrating. And in that moment, you're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm.
But then taking a step back, moving yourself out of that environment just for a little bit and trying to remind yourself, "Hey, Dennis, why are you doing this? What's your why?
Mhm.
Why did you even come into the construction industry?" Yeah.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Constructing Mindsets. I'm your host, Vincent Saunders. This is all about changing the way we talk about the construction industry. Whether you're on the tools or supporting others behind the scene, we are hearing from the people who are shining their light and making a difference. Thanks for joining us. Let's get into the episode. Dennis, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Good, thanks. And yeah, thanks for having me on here.
No, yeah, looking forward to this one actually. Yeah, I've known you a wee while now. Yeah, do you just want to maybe chat through sort of, who you are, what you do, and kind of how we know each other?
I mean, I'm Dennis, and I've known you, if we can think that was potentially maybe 2022, coming to 23.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, last sort of, few years have been a bit of a blur coming out of COVID and
Yeah,
moving around and sort of getting settled in a new area. I believe it was kind of your first job as a site manager.
yeah, 100%. So, um, yeah, it was pretty much after COVID. Um, I studied architecture, and then which I graduated with, and right after graduating, COVID came along, and that was a great time. Pretty much what had happened was, I was applying for jobs everywhere, and nothing was really happening. I'm sort of sitting at home. Yeah, I mean, thousands of applications, and I was like, you know what? I'm not just going to sit at home doing nothing. Ended up joining this small company who was doing, residential building, and sort of was on the tools for a couple of years, I believe. And yeah, I mean, always enjoyed being on tools, sort of doing the odd DIY job at home, type of thing. And yeah, really enjoyed being on the tools on site. And it really helped me sort of put, uh, like everything that I learned in architecture, the theory side of things into practical. I'm sort of seeing it hands-on details and how things come together, which is real awesome. I mean, throughout my 3 years of studying, it was always just looking at pictures and making details up and talking about how things should go together and it was a cool experience coming into actually being able to do that in real life. And so after that, I got an opportunity to join a newish company who was doing commercial as a site coordinator. And I sort of hopped on and I was like, you know what, might as well see how that goes, and really enjoyed doing that as well. And then shortly after that, I believe COVID happened again. And I sort of forecasted seeing that, yeah, it wasn't going to be too great for that company that I just nearly started, obviously, with how things were going. At that time, I remember prices for things were just going off the charts, with construction materials being shorted as well. I remember there was a whole thing about jib and not being able to get that in, and all this drama was happening, and I was like, yeah, I don't really see anything happening there. And so I saw an ad pop up, and I was like, you know what, might as well give it a shot.
Nice. What sort of projects are you working on?
Currently, we're working on a site which consists of 184 houses, which range from standalones, from terraces, some unit over units, and some three-story terraces that are on that site. And I look after the finishing side of things. So that'll be from pre-line into pretty much sealment. So it's actually quite a cool experience. I feel like, yeah, the starting side of things, it's a lot more technical. However, it's the finishing that the customers really see at the end of the day. and that's the first impression that people get to a home that they'll potentially buy and live in for a long time. So yeah, it really gives me, I guess, a bit of a buzz or a kick out of it just to, be a part of that journey for somebody to potentially move into a house, raise a family and be their first home or, their last home. And so it's a cool experience, and you get to meet a lot of people from different sort of stages of life. Yeah, help to navigate into a new home for them. Uh,
And do you get to meet the new homeowners at any stage throughout sort of your handover or your that project being finished?
yes, we do. I try to sort of go in through with the initial walkthrough of a house. That's obviously after that they've gone under contract, and then they want to do a walkthrough of the house. And I normally try to attend that too. You know, there's a lot of questions, and especially for people that are buying the first time. I remember purchasing my first house. There's a lot of emotions that you go through, obviously, with getting to a point of even being able to purchase a house. It's could be quite scary for a lot of people, and so they've little things that they might not sort of understand about a house or might be a big sort of worry in their head, and it's good to be around sort of to clear up any questions that they have and make them feel comfortable with what they're about to move into as well.
Might put you on the spot here, but like, what's a typical question, or like, what's one of the most, I don't know, asked questions that you might get from, yeah, one of your customers?
Um, I think the most common one recently that's been is just our cladding. I know obviously there's a lot of sort of um, rumors around weather tightness with cladding and all of that, and so sort of just explaining to the homeowners that this is the product that we use and this is how we install it, and 9 times out of 10 that they do feel quite happy after they've figured out how that's all come together. Yeah, I mean, currently we're using sort of some James Hardy weatherboards, and a lot of people sort of still stuck in that idea, all brick house is the best house to buy. But obviously technology's come a long way, products have come a long way, and a lot of testing has been done. And it's yeah, I mean it's just giving that confidence into what they've purchased and the product that we provide them.
What drew you into construction when you first got into it there?
Yeah, I guess I always had a sort of rough idea in my mind, sort of going through high school and stuff that I want to do something with buildings, I guess. So architecture was my first choice. So I studied that and sort of soon realized that I sort of want to be a bit more hands-on at the building side of things. Always, yeah, I love going through studying architecture at uni and stuff, but I felt like I wasn't really connected to what I was designing. Like it all on paper. I guess you do get to see it in real life, but in that process of it, you're not really part of the build. And so when I did sort of try out, joining that smaller sort of building company and actually being a part of constructing a house, I quite enjoyed that. Quite enjoyed the different stages, from slab to frames to being able to enclose the house to finishing. And it really sort of, yeah, it really made me feel that I was actually a part of something rather than just being able to draw something on a piece of paper and send that out. And then, yeah, I guess sort of the way that I sort of like working is doing a lot of things sort of hands-on, making sure that, I'm sort of part of or at the heart of a project and coming into sort of site management made me feel like that. That you're building high density, you're building hundreds of houses, but however, each house is still special. It's not just a house to somebody. When you get that sort of ingrained into you, that even though you're building hundreds of houses, but that one house there is somebody's home, then you feel that greater connection to what you're doing.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
especially if you're, oh sorry, yeah, especially if you're meeting the homeowners at the end of the stage as well. Like that's quite a personal sort of connection that you make. Cool. And like, was it what you expected when you first got into construction?
maybe not so much. I think the biggest challenge I guess I had was being quite young. I mean, yeah, as a site manager, being quite young and not having that level of experience as the contractors that I was going to talk to and sort of trying to manage, and I think that was, I mean, it's maybe it's not so much now, but I did sort of still feel that 2 years into being a site manager is that, yeah, a lot of people, especially in the construction industry, gauge you by the amount of years of experience you have, and which is I mean, yeah, that's which is great because obviously with experience you go through a lot of challenges and you learn from that. But I feel like what happens is pretty much like if you're young and you don't have that, that experience behind you to back you up, people generally don't like to listen to what you have to say. And that was the biggest sort of challenge that I did have initially when I started. And I mean, also not saying that I had a lot to learn as well. I remember the first project that we started coming into the sort of apartments. Didn't really have any experience with that type of construction. I started off with just building terraces and standalines and stuff, and sort of coming into a three-level apartment with, I think it was five apartments in the level. I
Yeah,
think it was.
we probably should know this off by heart, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's five
Yeah,
apartments, three
yeah,
levels high with kind of like serviceable, sort of not communal, serviceable cupboards and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
serviceable staircases and things like that.
Exactly. And then also like with all the fire rating that was involved and stuff. Um, yeah, and I guess the biggest thing was just the speed of things that was happening. I've come from building a house which will take about a year or two, and that's like three houses. Whereas, like, times two that out of nowhere. And yeah, just seeing how many people are involved in something like this, and obviously programming so many people that are involved in it, and making sure that each task happens, or and a certain amount of time to make sure that that project's finished was another big challenge coming into it. But I guess the one thing that really helped me um, was yourself. And I remember I remember the one thing that you told me. It's like, Dennis, like you have so many hours in the day, and if something didn't happen and you tried your best for it to happen, it's just don't beat yourself up about it. And then I think that's one thing that I still hold to date as well, is that I can only do so much, I can only program so much, push so much, and if something didn't happen even after the best of my efforts, I shouldn't feel bad about. Obviously, like anyone would, take this project your best at it, but at the end of the day, there's so many factors involved in construction. There's so many pieces that are part of this puzzle that it only takes one to sort of go off the rails, and this project's pushed back a little bit, but I mean, that's part of construction, right? That's how it goes. If every house was built smoothly, we wouldn't technically have a job.
How did you work through those maybe problems on site with sort of that age difference that you found with some of the contractors, and sort of how did you harness that sort of the youthfulness that you have?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was ensuring that I did my own research. You know, um, let's say there is a problem with whatever part of the build, I needed to know enough for myself to make sure that whatever was happening was done right, or if it wasn't done right, why it wasn't. And obviously, the biggest thing is asking questions, which what seems easy, it's easier said than done. Like, everyone says there's no such thing as a dumb question, but when you're like this sort of, you know, guy that's come out of uni fresh, has maybe a year or two under his belt with building houses, goes up to this guy who's got like 30 years in the industry, building, had a hammer in his hand since he was, born, trying to go ask him a question and not feel like you're going to be judged. It was the biggest thing. But I think at the end of the day, is like, you know, you just gotta understand, there are people that are going to be out there that are just going to, shrug you off, but you still just gotta get through it and just ask those questions. And nine times out of ten, you'll learn a lot out of it. You might get some, bad experiences, but whatever, it's sort of, I feel like it does build character. And I think, yeah, that project really taught me a lot in terms of how to sort of come across to people, initially, you don't want to sound like you know it all, but you do want to ask the somewhat the right questions to then be heard, I guess. Yeah. And so that's what I've sort of taken, sort of moving forward from that is, if there is something that I don't know, I need to sort of do a little bit of my own homework on it before before I go out. Now, at least I know some part of it that'll make sense, and if any whatever I ask sort of makes sense to that person that I'm talking to, that contractor that I'm talking to. And then you sort of, yeah, you start building relationships, try create that trust in your contractors. And yeah, honestly, I've learned a lot from our contractors coming out of that. They've been building for 15, 20 years plus. They've most likely come across this problem a few times in their career. And so, yeah, it's always good to learn off others.
Yeah, it sounds like just being open and kind of transparent around sort of if you do have a question, what gave you the confidence to ask those questions, or how did you get to that point where you're like, gosh, I just need to ask this question?
I guess what it was is pretty much like, okay, I've got a program and something's not happening. And if it doesn't happen, at the end of the day, it relies on me, right? So I gotta just end up asking these questions. And if I do sound a bit sort of don't know what I'm doing, it is what it is, Like there is no other way to learn. Like it is correct. You gotta ask questions to learn and sort of not acting like I might know it all as well.
Seeing the opportunity of asking the question like as a learning opportunity rather than just like
Yeah.
something I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Like exactly. Like I know initially I did feel a bit scared going into the sort of again like coming in that project was pretty much near on its end, and you've been looking after it. Sort of went from another site manager to then to you, and you guys had already built this relationship for me to then come in this new face, young kid trying to do his part. Again, I didn't. Yeah, I know I wasn't involved that much into it. I feel like you did look after most of the nitty-gritty things there, but
Yeah, but what I do remember when push came to shove and we had to get CCC, I had COVID for like that week of when we were trying to get code of compliance for that building. And then it was like all rested on your shoulders to finish it. So
yeah, yeah,
you kind of did the
yeah,
cherry on the
and
top there.
but I feel like again, like looking back at it now, that was such a great opportunity. Like again, at that time, I was like, "What do I do, man?" Like Vincent's away for 2 weeks, I remember, and I was like freaking out because we had all these settlements lined up. We needed CCC. We were waiting on CCC. But yeah, sort of looking back at it now, it was such a great opportunity. It taught me a lot in a very short amount of time. And I think that's the biggest thing that really pushed me is, the way that how fast we build things. It really allows you to learn a lot of things in a very short amount of time. And I guess, I guess the other thing is, we sort of do the same stuff over and over again. So it does that repetition also helps somewhat to be consistent in what you're practicing.
I got a good question here. What does a typical day look like for you at the moment? What does Dennis as a site manager do for a residential builder? What's his day like?
My typical day, well,
Yeah.
I'll wake up, go to the site office, don't drink coffee still, so I'll have a
Okay.
tea.
Give it like another few years, maybe have more coffee.
Yeah, maybe still haven't planned at the coffee yet. Um, and then it's just obviously um, ensuring whatever was programmed for yesterday had happened, and if not, or if it's not on progress, go around have a chat to my contractors. I do like to sort of first thing is to just go around have a chat to my contractors in the morning. There's always they either need something urgently because it wasn't delivered the other day, or there's a problem that they sort of figured out at the end of yesterday that we just need to solve real quick. And it's also just checking up on them. I do like to, yeah, just go around and have a quick chat with everyone in the morning and also just having pre-starts. So, yeah, making sure that they have the right equipment from our end to do their job, as best and safely and efficiently as possible. And then after that, I guess I'll go into the office, tear up some emails, go back to sort of checking up on CCC progress on houses that need to settle. And then, yeah, programming the other lots that are sort of, coming up or nearing their end or, yeah, whatever stage they're at. So making sure that my programs are as, close as possible. Again, a program always changes. So a very fluid thing. But yeah, ensuring that it reads what's actually happening on site. And yeah, I guess just keeping good communication with your contractors. Yeah, as you know, like, we've got contractors from different stages, a lot of them don't respond to emails. It's mostly phone calls still. And yeah, just ensuring that I catered the way that all our contractors like to be communicated in. Again, yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned so far is it doesn't matter where the project's at, or if there are delays or whatever, but if everything is communicated clearly, mostly, yeah, I feel like your contractors will pull through just because they sort of understand what's been going on. Again, everything's a process in construction, right? So there's things that need to happen before, prior to what the next contractor needs. And if that wasn't done correctly or in time, it pushes everyone out. And so if that is the case, just making sure that everyone's in line and communicated very well too. I understand, there's a lot of deliveries, a lot of people sort of need to order things in time. And if it gets pushed out, they don't have the capacity to hold on to things if it's last minute. And so making sure that everyone that's part of the puzzle are aware of what's happening on site, and it just makes it run smoother.
So you mentioned communicating to your contractors. Like, how often might you communicate to, one single contractor if they're on a work face for you, sort of that day?
It ranges, man. Like, my phone pretty much goes off every single like minute of the day, which gets a bit sort of overwhelming depending on which contractors. There are some contractors that are a little bit more needy than the others, which like phone call you, try to look for you every time they get. I know roughly it'll be around at least 5 times an average on a day with a certain sort of contractors. I mean, like Tyler's, probably I'll have a chat to our Tylers once a day, and they're pretty organized on their own, and they'll just get stuff done. You don't really need to sort of push them more in terms of that, but there are some contractors that you might need to sort of push. I don't want to say micromanage, but just making sure that they're on target, and that they're at their set time of the program. And so they might need, yeah. So
If that contractor is sort of contact you quite a bit, like that potentially could be a little bit frustrating. How do you like stay calm in those situations if you've got a contractor sort of calling you a few times an hour, or staying cool and professional in there?
I guess if, yeah, if I've already picked up a couple of phone calls, within an hour, I'll pretty much tell this person, hey, look, man, like, I know there's a lot going on, but maybe let's set a timeout, and you make a list or write down everything that you need to chat about, and we'll set some time out, and I'll make sure that that my focus is with you for that certain amount of time. Because like, I'll just be honest with you, I'll be like, I'm looking after X amount of houses. There's 10 other contractors that are all sort of on the same page, and if all I'm getting is phone calls from you every day, it sort of, yeah, it fogs me up from what I need to do for my other projects. So I said, yeah, I normally do set a timeout, and it makes it easier. That
Yeah, and how's that received?
good. Like, I feel like being honest is a great tool as well. As much as you want to sort of pick up every single phone call, help out everyone, I guess they respect that, you're taking some time out of your day to sit down and have a chat about what's going on site and with their project, and they feel heard. And I feel obviously the biggest thing is, whatever, if the contractor needs something and if it's not done, then it's frustrating on both ends, right? So being able to sit down and make a list of, hey, look, I need, all these materials ordered. I need, this door's not working out, or something's not lining up, or this and that. But if it's all on the page, I can be like, hey, look, okay, sweet, I'll work through all of this, set a timeout on when we should have it all closed off by, and then they have something to sort of track as well. Whereas if it's just, a phone call every 5 minutes about something, there's no way to track where anything's at.
You kind of touched on when things sort of challenges on site, and if somebody's got something going on, like what's your approach when things don't go to plan on site? Like, how do you work through that, and what are your steps that you take to get to the end scenario where everyone's happy at the end of the day?
Well, obviously, initially frustration comes and kicks in. You've tried to sort of mitigate all possibilities of something to go wrong or whatever, and obviously something's happened or somebody's dropped the ball, and especially if it's a contractor that's done this a couple of times, then a lot of frustration does kick in. But I guess Yeah, I guess the first thing is asking the question why. What's happened? Is there something on our end that we could have done better? I think the first thing is that I try to do is not put the blame on them. Ask the question why, what's happened, and was it something that I could have done? And it sort of opens them up to talk a bit more freely. I feel like, and I know initially, sort of starting off, I would sort of, be like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, you've done this, this, and this," and creating a very hostile environment from the get-go. Whereas, just I know it's harder to be calm, but there's always a reason, right? So it's just making sure that we figure out what the reason was and coming up with a solution. At the end of the day, we can talk about problems, 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 but I feel like the line of my job is that we just got to orientate ourselves into a solution. And so, yeah, just having a conversation, why, what's happened, what do we need to do is the next thing, right? Do you do you need more time, or was something not right? What's happened? What do we need to do? How can we solve this? Obviously, like, when the question of how long do you need it comes into play, there's always some GST added to that, right? There's always a couple of extra days added to that. So I guess then that whole experience comes into play, sort of understanding what that process is and how long it should take. And then obviously negotiating, hey, look, you've said 3 days. I'm open to give you some more extra time, but it can't be 3 days. We need to sort of, you need to understand that, hey, look, if it was their fault, look, sort of be like, hey, look, this went wrong and this is why it's gone wrong. But I'm happy to sort of meet you halfway. Can we do it in a day and a half? Can we do it in a day? Or, whatever that is. And then, yeah, if it's something that constantly happens, I guess, yeah, then it comes down to, getting the right people in the room and providing evidence. I think that's the biggest thing is ensuring that you have evidence to back up on what you're trying to talk about. And if you don't have, yeah, if you don't have the right evidence or, the correct communication skills to provide that, then it's just going to be an ongoing issue. And I mean, I'm sure that there's certain contractors that no matter what you do, it's sort of always a bit of an issue. But again, the way I see it is I'm on site looking after 30 odd houses, so I got to always ensure that I don't burn my bridge with certain people rather than being all angry and sort of going off with them. Always trying to keep calm. What's in my circle of control and again prioritize things. There's initially everything seems like a very big rock. Sort of categorizing each event, each task into okay, this is what I need to do. This probably isn't so urgent. And then always having a bit of a buffer in in my day for things that um, sort of come out of nowhere. There's always something that sort of catches you out of nowhere, ensuring that that might happen.
No, cool. And sort of what would maybe some of your key takeaways for any others navigating sort of the similar changes? Like, what's a couple key points for you to, some advice from Dennis who's done, a couple hundred houses? What would you say to somebody who's just starting off, um, sort of in the industry and working through some of these challenges around things not going 100% to plan?
Yeah, I think the first thing is don't feel discouraged if you don't know. There's construction's a very fluid environment. There's a lot of things that keep changing, you know, and no matter how many houses you build, there's always going to be something that you don't know. So don't beat yourself up about if you feel like you don't know anything. Just if you and I think the biggest thing is passion. If you know your why, if you know why you're in this industry, don't forget that and sort of circle back to why you're doing it. For me, my why is knowing that I'm just building a house, I'm building a home for somebody to move into, and knowing that that there's going to be a family in there. They might have their first kid, or they'll be sitting around the dinner table in the dining room. And when I walk through a house, I sort of imagine how things will be set up, and how people live in this space, and sort of, yeah, sort of circling myself back to that is what's helped me is understanding the reason why I do what I do. And yeah, the other thing is, again, if you were like me and you've sort of joined at a young age, in construction, especially being in a position where you're trying to manage experience, don't be scared to ask questions, but also you do need to do a bit of homework as well. Um, you have to invest that time into your craft with anything, right? Whatever it is that you love doing, you have to invest time into it. If you don't put time into it, don't expect to get anything out of it, I guess. It is if there is if you find a new detail that you don't know anything about, just read up on about it. There's a lot of information and it makes it easier. We've got the internet, just look it up, learn about it. And if you still don't understand, ask the questions with the builder, and you'll be surprised how much you learn when you actually being out on site, visualizing things at certain aspects. If you don't know how that piece of cladding joins onto that cavity batten, detail in that, the corner flexion, whatever it is, just have a look. It doesn't hurt for you to just have a look and ask questions, even if nothing's going wrong. Just ask questions if you don't understand anything, and it takes you a long way. And it also shows that you're eager to learn. What I've just now recently, we've had a couple of new contractors, builders come join our branch, and they've been building before my time, and especially, working with Grant, it helps, just going out and having a chat to them, having a chat to these guys that have been doing it for years, and just seeing what they've sort of learned over the years with their experience really helps, and it creates that relationship. But yeah.
Just wanted to, I don't know, you mentioned something about your why there. Like, do you mind maybe sharing around how you got to that why and,
Yeah, of course.
how you kind of, yeah, how you got to that insight around this is why I'm doing this and how that helps you? Because I think that's really important.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think for me as a person, I think with anything I do, I try to do my best at it. And if it maybe, like put aside hustle of baking cakes.
Me and Alice miss we missed your cupcakes for our last couple wedding anniversaries. So
Oh, dude,
yeah,
I
we're
need
a
to, I
bit
need,
gutted
I need
that
to
you
send you
don't.
some.
Yeah, you need to deliver those to Tauranga here.
Yeah, yeah, no, no worries. Drive down with it. Uh,
No,
yeah, like
sorry, but yeah.
yeah, like with baking cakes, it's just a small thing. It's a small little cake that you bake, but it's for somebody's like special day. And just knowing that, you want to give whatever you have, whatever skill you have, and doing your best at it because there's a reason that, somebody's come to you for their special day, their birthday, their anniversary, or whatever, and you want to be a part, and that cake there is going to be a part of that moment in their life. And so I feel like when we're part of building the house, we're we're part of a moment in somebody's life when they purchase that house. And I feel like that there holds a very special place in my heart as, like, yeah, I'm part of this moment. It's more than me just going around making sure the paint's looking perfect. But, I mean, they're gonna have kids in there that are gonna have the, draw on these walls eventually. But just part of that is, yeah, it took, I think what when I realized that was when I was doing settlements out at apartments, when people came in, moving in. I remember there was this couple that had their first baby, moved in, and it was like, wow, I've walked in this apartment hundreds of times in different sort of stages of it, but to finally see somebody move in, live in that house, it was like a light bulb moment. I was like, yeah, this is cool.
Quite special when you, like you say, you walk into a house so many times looking at the walls or looking at the carpet, and then you walk in there to maybe fix something when someone's living in there and you see you put your couch there. Oh,
Yeah,
that's where you put your dining room table. Oh, there's some artwork over on that wall. Like, it
yeah,
is pretty
yeah,
cool to
and
see
it
that.
and it really like it changes the whole atmosphere of that little room, and you're like, wow, like I was there, I
Yeah.
was there
I was there
snagging
like
this
last
house.
week.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And yeah, it creates that special moment. And I think whatever you're doing, especially in construction, you got to find your why. Because as I'm sure as you're aware, it does come to a very there are times that are very stressful. In that process when things are just not lining up, you've got deadlines that you need to meet, and you're trying your best, you're putting everything into it, it's just not happening, and it becomes very frustrating. And in that moment, you're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. But then taking a step back, moving yourself out of that environment just for a little bit, and trying to remind yourself, hey, Dennis, why are you doing this? What's your why? Why did you even come into the construction industry? You know? And yeah, just taking a breath. I remember I remember you told me that as well. I was getting a little bit stressful. There was things not happening, especially with our interior painters. You said, Dennis, man, just if it's getting a bit too much, just drive down. Just remove yourself from that environment. You know, take it on
Yeah,
a
like go, like hop in your car, go have lunch somewhere else.
yeah,
Just kind of take that time to clear your mind and I don't
yeah,
know, see, yeah, not just staring at the same building 100% of your day, like
exactly, yeah,
ensuring you can get a bit of a breather and some space for yourself.
yeah. No, I know, and that's exactly it. And I feel like you can sort of take that into anything you're doing. It can sort of yeah, it's I don't know. It's like you have to change literally your mindset and how you do things. If you're constantly putting yourself in that stressful environment, constantly trying to, you know, bang your head against this issue, you're not going to get anything out of it. You have to, take a or even, be like, hey, look, man, I just can't think of anything right now. Can I please, circle up and come back and have a look at it tomorrow? And you'll be surprised, something that looked like such a big mountain. You go and have a look at it tomorrow. It's like, oh, dude, it had such a simple solution to it. Yeah,
I think that's super important and super, super helpful. So hopefully someone listening out there can then maybe tomorrow take it into their day and just take a break, take a breath, and maybe just even get 5 minutes alone and just think about something else rather than their job. Because yeah, I think it definitely helps when you kind of slow down and just see things as they are, not kind of in the flow of the moment.
yeah, no, for sure.
So yeah, probably just a couple more quick questions there, mate. Do you have a couple moments or a moment that has made you proud so far?
A couple of moments that have made me proud so far. Yeah, yeah, there has been. And it's with aftercare, actually. I remember this was, I think, last year. There's a time where we were sort of waiting on land to be handed over, and we only had one site running. The site managers didn't really have a site to go to, so we sort of jumped on into customer care, and there was this owner, and she had a lot of items on her list. At the end of it, I remember she sent me this huge paragraph saying how much she appreciated my time and effort into getting everything sorted out for her. And I think that there again reassured my why as well. She's appreciated all the hard work that I had put into to making sure she has a home that she loves. Was yeah, was really really cool.
And like looking forward, looking to the future for you, Dennis, like what are your dreams for the industry?
Good question. I feel like it has changed. Recently, it has. Just coming into sort of seeing construction and where things are going with our economy at the moment. I mean, yeah, as house sales aren't the best at the moment, but I think my long-term goal is to long-term, I guess, sort of mid, not short-term, but sort of progress at least in the next 3 to 4 years to be a PM. So trying to figure out a path way to get there is is what I'm sort of working on at the moment. Uh, like again, I feel like my biggest concern is I may be too young for this. Again, coming into it, it's always the biggest question in my head is, do I have the right skill set to progress into a PM in the next 4 years? Or if I don't, how do I work towards that? What do I need in my toolkit to be able to do that? And I guess the biggest thing is just, seeing our current PMs. sort of absorbing as much as I can and learning. I feel like there's a lot more in terms of building relationships rather than sort of being able to manage a site. It's more so, creating those good relationships with your site teams, with your wider teams as well. And yeah, just working on that at the moment, setting myself up a bit of a pathway into how do I get there in the next 3 to 4 years.
What would make it a better place for everybody, do you think? Or one thing that you might want to, when you're a project manager and, 3 or 4 years' time, like what's one thing that maybe you would like to put in place to make it a better place for people to work?
I think the biggest thing is to let everybody have a voice, making it a safe environment for anyone to bring their ideas in or their concerns. And sort of going back from my experience, if there are people who are young or not even young, just are not passionate about being in this industry, but just don't have the experience, being able to help them feel like they heard and just, yeah, just taking that stigma out of it that, oh, I've got 30 years experience, type of thing. Just, throwing that mindset away and just being able to grow and learn all together. Doesn't matter if you're young and don't know much. Let's learn to teach.
Any final thoughts for you?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. If if you want to take that leap into construction, do it. Don't be scared that you might not know much about it. If you have that passion or if you feel like you really want to do it, just jump in.
That's it for today's episode of Constructing Mindsets. Remember, every conversation is a chance to shift the culture of construction. Reviews are always appreciated. Until next time, take care and keep showing up with good energy.